Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the meeting of the City Council Tuesday, November 13th, 2018 to order. We will have the Girl Scouts can come down, please, and we will all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. And before we do the Pledge of Allegiance, can we just have a moment of silence in remembrance of the victims and families of the Thousand Oaks tragedy and the fire victims in Northern and Southern California. Thank you. All right, Ms. Gardner, we can begin. Make sure that microphone's nice and close to your hand.
Girl Scouts, attention. Color Guard, attention. Everyone please rise for the flag of our country. Color Guard, advance. Color Guard, post the colors. Color Guard, honor your flag. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Color Guard dismissed. Audience may be seated.
Thank you so much. It's always a pleasure to have our youth involved and taking such responsibility. Before we start the council roll call, I need a motion for the absence of Mayor Pro Tem Deaton. She is ill today.
So move.
You have a second?
Second.
Please vote. Get the vote on that. Motion passes 4-0. Roll call, please.
Mayor Verapapa.
Here.
Councilmember Moore.
Here.
Councilmember Sestarsik. Here. Councilmember Masalavit.
Here.
As noted, Councilmember Deaton is absent.
Thank you. Approval of agenda and waiver of full reading of resolutions and ordinances. By motion of the City Council, this is the time to notify the public of any changes to the agenda and/or rearrange the order of the agenda. Do we have any at this time?
I'd like to pull item H, please.
Hold item H. Anyone else?
Mayor Verapapa, if there's no other items being pulled, I just wanted to read into the record that there were 3 separate communications regarding various agenda items that were distributed to the City Council and made available to the public.
Thank you very much. Okay, we'll move on to presentations and recognitions. The first presentation is the local coastal plan update. Do you have a staff report on that?
Yes, Mayor, I'll be giving an update to the City Council. As a quick overview, the city was awarded a grant of $200,000 from the California Coastal Commission to complete a draft local coastal program to be submitted for review and approval by the Coastal Commission so that it could be certified. The city then obtained the services of Michael Baker International to assist with the preparation of the draft local coastal program. Michael Baker is utilizing the services of Moffitt & Nichol to complete the sea level rise assessment that will be incorporated into the LCP. Moffitt & Nichol has an extensive history of knowledge regarding the city's beaches. They have conducted assessments on the city's beach, wave patterns, and pier. Thus far, the city and the consultant have worked primarily on the background work for the draft LCP. In general, this has consisted of reviewing existing data, maps, past draft LCPs, past Coastal Commission comments, preparation to update for state guidelines, new updates for sea level rise assessments, and coastal zone mapping. The city has been coordinating with coastal staff in regard to the project moving forward. Coastal staff is aware of the city's current constraints and is working with the city to extend the grant term so that there will be plenty of time for public outreach and input throughout this process. Outreach notification is expected to begin in spring of 2019. In all coordination with the Coastal Commission staff, the primary focus throughout is to make sure that we are providing sufficient time for public input throughout this process. Both the Coastal Commission staff and city staff understand the importance of having the public involvement throughout this process. If there are any other questions, I can provide those to the council.
Do we have any questions at this time? I just had one. The contract with Michael Baker expires next year in the spring.
The contract with Michael Baker, I can go back and take a look if the time needs to be revised. From what I remember in the contract, it was set to be in place until the LCP was completed.
Okay. And then when does the grant expire?
The grant was initially set to expire in October 2019, but the coastal staff is aware that we've had different challenges along the way. So they right now are reviewing a revised timeline, which is looking to close at about July of 2020.
Okay. Maybe early next year we can have another update on this.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Our next recognition is the LBCC, Long Beach Community College Hall of Fame inductee, Commander Stephen Bowles. I think we have a video to show briefly. A nice certificate. Please put your attention on the two screens on either side.
Realize that these 3 blocks might take a while. After all, you're in the company of a celebrity. Everybody knows him. Everybody wants to stop him for a visit, tell their thoughts, share a joke, take a selfie, give him a hug. You'd think you were hanging out with a real-life superhero, or maybe even Santa Claus. He's that popular. Well, in the case of Stephen Bowles, you can believe in Santa Claus and superheroes. Born to true Long Beach Unified School District greatness, longtime educators Jean and her husband, Dr. John Michael Bowles, built a life for their 3 kids, John, Steve, and Christy, in Long Beach and in Rossmore. Steve enjoyed sports as a boy, graduating from St. John Bosco. Steve was yet to find his passion, feeling that nothing was clicking for him. Mike and Jean knew of a school where people could help influence him for the greater good. After all, one of Mike Bowles' protégés worked in student life there, John Philpaugh. Enter the world of Long Beach City College and the Men's Social Service Club, the Order of Tonga International. Steve's world would change forever as he began to enjoy school, make friends, volunteering in the community, and meeting his own mentors in the coach, aka Tonga advisor Philip Schrottman, Virginia Baxter, and fellow inductee Dr. John Philpaugh. While attending LBCC, Steve received the Tong Red Jewel Award, the Congressional Gold Medal, and the highest award bestowed on students, the Viking Award. After graduating from LBCC, Steve knew his heart would remain a Viking, but he also knew it was time to get serious. After the death of his best friend Bill in 1989, Steve got his first reminder about the preciousness of life and time. Transferring to Cal State Long Beach, he buckled down to raise his grade point average and started planning his future. He tried his hand at substitute teaching while earning the first of 2 master's degrees and starting his own real estate company that he operates to this day. In 1994, he completed the police academy at Rio Hondo College, joining the Seal Beach Police Department full-time in 1995. In many ways, Steve has led an idyllic life, rising within the ranks from police officer to corporal to sergeant and now to commander. Raising his family, teaching part-time at LBCC, and coaching his daughter, Kid Carly's softball team. except life has often put him in the midst of challenges and losses. But Steve has a way of turning something devastating into a life lesson. In 2005, Steve was diagnosed with stage 2 melanoma. During his own battle, he noticed that support had been established for firefighters battling cancer, but not for police officers. He and 2 colleagues then formed the National Law Enforcement Cancer Support Foundation, a referral service to assist families of officers fighting cancer throughout the country. The Seal Beach Pink Patch Project also became the brainchild of Steve, as every October, patches turn pink for officers throughout the country to bring awareness to the fight against breast cancer. He is tremendously proud that Seal Beach was the first agency in the country to don the pink patches. Key loved ones in his life have been taken too soon. His brother John battled back from a stroke at a young age before his death. His friends Bill and Lori, and his father, all who played a significant role in shaping his character. Then there is October 11th, 2011, the deadliest mass shooting in Orange County history. And then Sergeant Steve Bowles, one of the first on the scene at the Salon Meritage. Steve served as a public information officer during that ordeal with thoughtful and thorough compassion, earning a Medal of Merit for his role as a first responder and PIO. What these traumatic events and losses have done is turn this hometown kid into a man who holds on to hugs with his daughter a little longer, gripping the handshake of a friend a little stronger, and appreciating the mentors in his life and taking pride in those he mentors today, many of which include students from his adjunct teaching at Long Beach City College, who work alongside him today as he serves as the second in command of the Seal Beach Police Department. His stars continue to rise within the ranks of both the police department, the community, and even the nation, receiving training with the FBI National Academy. He has been honored for his work with Mothers Against Drunk Drivers, the Special Olympics, and Police Officer of the Year from the city of Seal Beach. These honors pale in comparison to the accolades he receives each year as he rides his daughter and nieces down the quaint main street of Seal Beach. For his bravery, service, and dedication to the citizens of Seal Beach, California, and for the example he sets for the students of Long Beach City College, Superintendent President Reagan F. Romali and the Long Beach Community College District Board of Trustees proudly induct Commander Stephen Bowles into the Long Beach City College Hall of Fame.
Let's give him a
One
big
could
hand.
say that Dr. John Philpott has always had his eye on the ball, whether it was playing.
Commander Bowles, it's an honor to be here with you. On behalf of the City of Seal Beach and the City Council, we're very proud to present you with this. You're the first Hall of Fame recipient I've ever given a plaque to. And you haven't aged a bit since the
Thank
Long
you,
Beach
Adrian. Thank
City
you.
College Day.
Thank you.
Thank you, and
I
great
appreciate
job.
it. Thank you very much.
Please give him a big hand. Can I say a few words?
Sure, thank you.
Thank you, everybody. I really appreciate what Seal Beach has done for me, both personally and professionally, the relationships with many of you in the room. Just special thanks to my mom, Jean, who's here in the front row. Any chance, ask my mom to come see me get an award, I take that opportunity. And my aunt, Christy, who's here visiting from Virginia. And a special thanks to our city staff, city manager, council, and my chief of police, Joe Miller, and my partner, Phil Gonchak, and Sergeant Mike Henderson. Our team at the police department is second to none, and I wouldn't be anywhere near where I am today without those guys specifically and all of those in the room. Who I appreciate your friendship and you being my colleagues for almost 25 years. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Great job. At this time, I'd like to call upon Danielle Arnerich Combs, the member of the Orange County Board of Directors with the Girl Scout troops. Yeah, can you bend the microphone? You could-
Back to everybody. Hi, this is so neat to see so many people here. Hello. Hi, I'm Danielle Arnerich Combs, and I'm a member of the Orange County Girl Scout Board of
You have to
Directors.
speak into the microphone.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm a member of the
Thank you.
Orange County Girl Scout Board of Directors, and we were invited here. Well, our CEO, actually, Vicki Shep, was invited here this evening to speak to all of you. Unfortunately, she's traveling, so she wasn't able to come, so she posed it to see if any one of the members of the board could do it, and I was very quick to volunteer because Seal Beach, Los Alamitos, this is my home. My husband and I are raising 3 children here, all in elementary, middle, and the high school, and 2 of my children are girls, and they were both Girl Scouts. One was up until middle school, and my youngest is a Daisy, and we use the troop meeting house right here, over on, I guess is that first, second? Seventh. Oh my gosh, it's just right the other way. So we were very, very happy to be invited to talk about the Scout House and to thank all of you. So I'm just going to share some words from Vicki since she was unable to be here. She wanted to thank the city council, and the community for their longstanding support of the Girl Scouts. Some of you may know that she was a Girl Scout right here in Seal Beach from 1973 to 1979. And the Girl Scout house, the program center, is I think what they called it, was her home. She spent many important, life-changing, and memorable hours there. At the time, she really had no idea how important the Girl Scout experience was going to be to her development. Those experiences have changed her forever and definitely for the good. You, the Seal Beach community, invested in her and in countless girls by providing the safe space for Girl Scouts of Orange County. And it continues to serve purpose and will do so in the future. As part of our Girl Scout tradition, we promise to use resources wisely, and this Scout House here is no exception. Vicki is committed to investing capital funds into the Scout House over the next few years so that more generations of girls will have the opportunity to use the Scout House and enjoy all of it has to offer. On behalf of the Girl Scouts of Orange County, we thank you for considering to continue our lease here and supporting the Girl Scouts and for all you do in the community. So thank you very much, and I believe we're going to have one of our girls speak, if that's
Okay, great.
Elizabeth Bennett.
Thank you. Can you just bend that down so they can, down that way?
Down this way, okay. Elizabeth Benedict. Oh, I'm sorry.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Elizabeth Benedict, and I am an alumni of Seal Beach Troop 897. The Seal Beach Girl Scout House is very near and dear to my heart, and I've spent 14 beautiful and amazing years there. Growing up at the house, it became my second home, and I have amazing memories of troop sleepovers, crafts, art, and amazing annual fairs like astronomy night. This house has allowed me to meet many amazing women who have given me the tools and skills to be successful in my life. At this house, I was given a safe and comfortable space to grow as a young woman and discover who I am. I am so grateful to the Seal Beach community for allowing us to have such a beautiful Scout house. Girl Scouts has molded me into the woman I am today, and I am truly, it's changed my life, truly. I've become such a much more confident, loving, compassionate person. Last year, I was awarded with my Girl Scout Gold Award for Monarch Butterfly Conservation, and now it sits at the Seal Beach Girl Scout House for everyone to enjoy. This house has helped create a safe space for all girls to educate the future female leaders of our community. By renewing the house's lease, Girl Scouts will continue to facilitate the growth, leadership, and compassion within these young women every day. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your service, and we're glad to be part of the Girl Scouts here in Seal Beach. We'll move on to the next item is the winter storm preparation. I believe we have Chief Joe Bailey to give us a little update on that.
Honorable Mayor, City Council, thanks for allowing me this time this evening. I'm here tonight to talk about our city storm meeting. Each year, let me see if I know which button to hit here. Each year, city staff gets together to talk about the upcoming winter storm season. And the winter storm season generally starts December, but mainly January. So this year we got together, and you can see all the departments included. The one department that's not there is city clerk, and I realize that, so I think I'm going to start inviting them also, so everyone feels included. Boy, that went over like a lead balloon. Okay, so highlights for this season, and this is from the National Weather Service. I'm not going to read them to you. I just think it's interesting to note that forecasts, they're difficult, and sometimes they're not right. And you can see weak or moderate El Nino conditions have brought dry winters and very wet seasons. So they're saying two things in the same sentence there. So it's hard to know what's coming our way, and they do the best they can. If we kind of shrink it down for Seal Beach, they're making a soft El Nino year prediction, which means sometimes El Nino is wetter, but it's definitely stronger storms are going to come through our areas, but maybe not as many. And then temperatures are forecast to be warmer than normal. And the long-term surf outlook, which I just saw new from Surfline yesterday, basically says we don't know what's going to happen yet. So it's hard to tell. But with all that being said, we can still prepare for this season coming up. So at this meeting, each department goes through their resources just to remind the other departments what we have available and what we're going to plan to do and help protect the citizens of Seal Beach for this winter season. So just for marine safety, I'm going to go through these real quick. I'm not going to read them all to you, but we have, we can usually get about 10 part-time staff members together, and we have equipment to go with those staff members. And the reason we do this meeting is so everyone knows what the resources are. For instance, 2-3 years ago, we had lifeguards in College Park East doing traffic control because we were out of other people. So, this meeting works to make the city departments work together. Orange County Fire, they have 2 bulldozers available. We had them down at the beach 4 or 5 weeks ago to put up an emergency berm. Once again, that also shows how the forecast is. The forecast was for larger surf the next day, and so we thought, well, we need to put up an emergency berm, and then that surf wasn't there. So the forecast was wrong, and the larger surf was there the day before. So it's one of those difficult things. But the Orange County Fire Authority was very helpful with their bulldozer. They have hand crews, they have sandbags, they have helicopters, and they're available to us. Obviously, there's maybe some other priorities where they're using the bulldozers, but every time we've asked in my history, they've been able to get one for us. Police Department, one point I want to make about this is the electronic signboards. I was looking through the notes from last year's winter storm meeting, and the notes say the police department's going to try and get a hold of either borrow or buy some electronic signboards. And so this year we have those electronic signboards, and they're used for more than just winter storms. So it's another reason we get this meeting together to look for new and better ways and new equipment. City PIO sitting over there, Mike Henderson, and he has the city website, social media, flyers, Seal Beach TV, and they have some PSAs made. I know they have one for how to fill sandbags, so if need be, we'll put those PSAs up on Seal Beach TV 3. Public Works, they started the winter sand dike, and that's ongoing right now. That'll be completed before Thanksgiving. They have 10,000 sandbags. We're going to set the sandbag stations up at the same locations as last year. The fire stations, lifeguard headquarters, Public Works yard, and the Liberty Gate, which is over on Seal Beach Boulevard. at the Navy base. And they have traffic control signs also, and pumps. They have contracts with 3 different companies this year for pumps, and they can get those pumps within 1 hour. One important note on this slide is the deployment of pumps is when the rain is forecast for over 1 inch an hour. So we just want to be clear that we're not going to have pumps on standby. This is where we've fallen on when we'll get the pumps out, and I think it's important to note that we have to have a line to where we say, hey, we're going to spend all this money and get all these pumps here, and this is the line that we're at right now. Communications, internally we have emergency phone number cards. We have our 800 megahertz radios, and those are PD, fire, lifeguards, public works, and city manager have those radios. And then we're going to use an email chain during if we have an event, and that's been used in the past, and it's very effective for us. Externally, I went over our social media and flyers and all that. Just some other points for the winter storm meeting that we go over is our timeline protocol for how we're going to react to when we know there may be a big weather event, a big surf event. And that's it. Like I said, I'm not going to read it to you. Pretty self-explanatory. And then lastly, I get a question all the time of who closes the pier and why. And so this decision is made by either the lifeguard chief or the police chief, and it's when the pier decking gets wet. And that's not when the pier decking is splashed. That's when the pier decking really gets wet from waves crashing on the pier. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Chief Bailey. Any questions? Seeing none, thank you for your update this year. Keep dry.
Thank you.
Okay, next up, I'd like to call upon Ms. Gail Taylor from the Cypress College to talk about the Cypress College honorees and the Americana Awards.
Good evening, Mayor and City Councilmen and women and staff. And I'm here annually to talk about our Americana Awards, which is an evening in February when we honor outstanding citizens from the communities we serve. And of course, Seal Beach is one of those cities. And if I can indulge one moment, I want to congratulate Commander Steve for his being named to the Long Beach City College Hall of Fame, and to the students who are here. Community college is a wonderful thing. Long Beach City College is fabulous, and I want you to know I'm from Cypress College, and we're #1 in California. Anyway,
Applications at the door, right?
Pardon me?
Applications are at the door, right?
Absolutely. Anyway, I'm really here to talk about Cypress College's 44th Annual Americana Awards. It's February 23rd, and you all have been very supportive over the years. And proceeds from Americana go to scholarships. And we gave about $350,000 last year in scholarships. And our goal is to increase that annually. We also have book loans and emergency loans for students, and we have faculty grants that come out of those proceeds as well. And with me tonight are the honorees from your city this year. I'd like to introduce them. Would you like to stand up, and you can even join me up here?
Yay.
Gina and Greg Phillips. Thank you. And both are active with the Police Foundation. Actually, I believe they helped found the Police Foundation. Gina is with the Chamber of Commerce and the Lions Club at the Republican Women's Federation, and she's a former and recent Orange County juror. Greg was born and raised in this area, lives in the same neighborhood he grew up in, and he's been very active with Run Seal Beach, the American Cancer Society's Relay for Life, and Sunburst Youth Academy at the Joint Forces Training Base. They've each done a lot more than that, but I wanted to keep my time limited. Our Woman of the Year this year is Jill Bolton, and she spent 24 years at Disneyland, and she's been in community service and, not community service, community relations. She's very active with Children's Hospital and the Segerstrom Center and a lot of other things. So hopefully you will all support us once again. with a table or attendance at Americana. And you'll be getting some more information later from Mayor Dave Shaver from Stanton, who also is chairman of this year's Board of Directors and of Cypress College Foundation. And I'd like to, Chuck Feenstra's here, he's on our committee, and Barbara Barton on our committee, and Seth Eaker and Scott Newton are chairs of the committee again this year. This is a program from the last year's event, and I want to show you your ad that we give you, comp, and if you were to pay for it, it would be $1,200, so we give you a good deal. And well, this is LoSal, you're on the next page. So here's the ad that was in our program from last year, and we'd like to do that again this year. So I would like to leave this as a reminder, and with whom shall I leave it?
With the city clerk would be fine. Thank you.
Okay, I thank you, and hope to see you on February 23rd.
Well, thank
Thank
you.
you.
And we really appreciate the Americana Awards and all the work that the Phillips do. We really appreciate the great work they do in our city. Thank you. Okay, at this time, we will move to oral communication. At this time, members of the public may address the council regarding any items within the subject matter jurisdiction of the City Council. Pursuant to the Brown Act, the council cannot discuss or take action on any items not on the agenda unless authorized by law. Matters not on the agenda may, at the council's discretion, be referred to the city manager and placed on a future agenda. Those members of the public wishing to speak are asked to come forward to the microphone and state their name for the record. All speakers will be limited to a period of 5 minutes. Speakers must address their comments only to the mayor and the entire city council, and not to any individual member of the staff or audience. Any documents for review should be presented to the city clerk for distribution. Thank you. Thank you.
Good evening, Barbara Barton, Old Town. Well, I'm here to say congratulations on passing BB. Everybody helped. Thank you very much. I only have 2 things to ask, favors from you guys. I'd like to put in a suggestion that when we get the money, if all that money, a whole lot of money, can be reported on quarterly, I feel that we really need to watch every cent to make sure it goes where it's supposed to go. Not that anything would happen with that, Vicki, I know that. But if we could please make sure it goes where we need it. And we had election last Tuesday, and it won. Now I'm wondering how soon will we get those police officers that we need? That's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, City Council, City Staff, City Manager. My name is Jeffrey Blanc, Board Member, Seal Beach Chamber of Commerce, the Government Affairs Committee Chairman. I would also like to acknowledge and congratulate the passing of Measure BB. I just have a couple of comments on the happenings in the City of Seal Beach in the next couple of weeks. On Thursday, November 15th, from 6 to 8 p.m., the Seal Beach Chamber Membership Committee will be hosting a chamber meet and greet. This event is for new, old, and potential members wanting to obtain information on the Seal Beach Chamber. This will be held at the Senior Center on 707 Electric Avenue. Swell Insurance will be providing appetizers and refreshments. On Saturday, November 17th, the Seal Beach Chamber, along with the City of Seal Beach, will be having our annual Christmas tree lighting. That will be sponsored by Boeing from 4 to 8 p.m. at Eisenhower Park. We will be having a snow and sledding courtesy of the Lions, Run Seal Beach, and the City of Seal Beach. Refreshments will be provided by Bogarts and Javatini's, Classic Movies, and of course, Santa Claus. And finally, on Thursday, November 22nd, we will be hosting our 39th annual Thanksgiving dinner at St. Anne's Church for those Seal Beach residents that have nowhere to go on Thanksgiving. We will offer transportation to those that do not drive any longer. Mackenzie Treasure, our executive director of the chamber, you can reach her at 562-799-0179. Please please RSVP by November 16th if you will need a ride. We will have music, bingo, and much more for the residents of Seal Beach to enjoy. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Chuck Veenstra, and I'd like to bring up 15 First Street. In the staff report tonight, they're asking for $26,200 to put a 600 amp service to the building out there. Right now, there's a 200 amp. And I think staff, when they wrote up or had the city buildings reviewed, they recommended basically a new electrical panel, which probably was corroded from the salt, replace the roofing material, also a swamp cooler, the electrical panel, again, swamp cooler and electrical panel. Anyway, this 600 amp should be passed on to them. Basically, the council basically came up with the things that had to be replaced. And those are the things which should be replaced, those 4 items, what the city should be buying, paying for. They're asking for the panel to be replaced to a different location. That should not be. That's the tenant's responsibility. Again, they're asking for 600 amp. That requires bigger cable from First Street all the way down to the restaurant. And that's why this cost at $26,000. We're paying for them to put in new wiring to take the load. The wiring in there right now, underground, what Edison's provided, is adequate for a new 200 amp. We don't have to relocate the panel. I don't know, in the staff report it says that doesn't meet building code or Edison's requirement. It does. Anyway, rent hasn't been paid, 6 months worth. I think Chief Joe really could use that money. I have a question. Has the plans gone to Coastal? And has each council person received a set of those plans? Floor plan, structural plans, the building, basically the aesthetics of it. Is the coastal permit issued? I don't know. I don't think some of the council people even know. They haven't received plans, I don't think, of what it's going to look like, or the layout of tables, kitchen, whatever. If they have an application, it should be posted. It's not posted. There's no ABC posted, which by law is supposed to be posted, both of these things. I think the plans of the existing buildings basically show the square footage of those buildings. If we're going to pay for that roofing, it should be just for that square footage. They're planning on putting new roof over the patio, the 2 patio areas, to conform with what's there now. So if they want some money for the roofing, it should be composition. If they want something better, let them pay for it. But a tenant basically pays for all improvements.
1 minute, please. 1 minute.
I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Rich Moody at 312 13th Street, and good evening. I just wanted to thank everyone for Prop BB and the success of that. And as we honor the commander tonight, I was thinking, how are we going to hire the new commanders and these new officers? As I look around, I know with Chief Acosta, all of Seal Beach, and Chief Bowles, these are special people. We don't find them easily. I know we're going to need to do some recruitment. We're going to need to do a search. They're going to need to be trained. And the replacements for these officers who work all the time. And I was remarking tonight, because I see these officers on all of our events in the city. I was thinking about this 4th of July. They're not allowed to take a day off. They're working full-time for us, all these special events. So I'd like to push that we hire now, and we start that recruitment process to replace all the fine officers in our group. That's going to take a while. It's not going to be something that we can just go find that new member to our city. The second thing I'd like to talk about was the consultant study. And I know we've all paid consultants to ask questions, formulate plans. I really believe you ever work in an organization where you know what you need. You've worked for years, maybe missing personnel. You're always looking for that place to put money, to put officers. Our officers here, they know where to put the money. They know where they've run short. I absolutely trust the staff on all your recommendations, and I appreciate all your recommendations. And I definitely want to just trust our city, trust our police officers that they know where to go. And I encourage that hiring of our next generation of officers as soon as possible. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi there, City Council and Mayor and staff. My name is Polly Cross. I'm in the College Park West area. Hello. I too am here to just congratulate you on the passing of Measure BB. I was very, very nervous. I did my research at the very beginning and really learned why we needed that increased revenue. And I tried to educate as many people as I could on social media who didn't seem to want to listen, who wanted just to have a knee-jerk opinion of no new taxes, who felt that perhaps the city government should be punished for not managing the budget properly, and it became my passion to try to educate everyone as much as I could, within reason, with as little profanity as possible, and to guide them to the right people so that they could learn and educate themselves. And many people wanted to, and once they learned the truth, they were on board right away, but many, many didn't. Many hold grudges, I think, toward the city government for things that have happened in the past, for things that's happening in Washington. I don't know what, what their problem is. But I, too, would like just to encourage whoever is in charge to start the process now with regard to the police officers. Not only because we need them, I know that it will take months to do recruiting, to do the proper vetting, and I'm hoping that if we were to start it now, by the time the funds start coming in, and I'm not sure quite how that works, but I think would be in the spring, we would be up and running and ready to have some really good new recruits in here before the busy spring and summer season come, and we are bombarded with people in town. I think that this whole measure was, back the blue. It was presented, even though funds are going into the general fund, it was presented as a public safety measure in addition to services. And I think that it would be very good, especially to the people that were spending vitriol on the internet or some of your constituents, I think it would be in really good faith for us to make that the number one priority, just to show them that we're backing it up. This is what we meant to do. This is what we're doing. This is our number one priority. And thank you guys so much for everything that you do.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, members of the staff, our fine police department. My name is Tim Prangley. I'm an Old Town resident for 30 years. I'd like to congratulate all the members of the Seal Beach team that was successful in getting this measure passed. A lot of work went into this, a lot of study. We have a consultant that's working on it supposedly. I've dealt with consultants, you've dealt with consultants. I have found, from my experience, I don't know about you, the best consultants are sitting right over there. And that's what we should listen most to. They know what they need, no question about it, and I agree with the former statement. I think that what is important here is that the city of Seal Beach the last couple of weeks learns soul again. We learned it through John and Stella. The nation knows about it. The world knows about that one. We learned it on November the 6th, when the citizens of Seal Beach voted yes, very strong yes, to Measure BB. And I'd like to say it's a vote of confidence in you in particular, but you and you and you and you and you for allowing the citizens to vote on this, because we needed it. We had a crisis. I don't want to cut words here. It was a crisis. We needed immediate resolution. We're getting immediate resolution to this. We have other long-term things we have to settle, and that's another priority. We are settling our top priority, the safety and security of Seal Beach, and you are to be congratulated. But also to be congratulated are those people that walked in the voting booth on November the 6th and said, yes, we need this, we support this, and we trust. It's not just a vote of confidence. We trust you people are to follow through and do it. And you get it to as quickly as possible. You use good judgment, you always have. I learned to grow in my respect for you during the past year of involvement in this, and walking door to door, talking to people. I sense that for the majority of the people of the city. You got 10%ers, anything you go into, you're going to have the naysayers. That's not personal. That just happens. But you have the majority of the people strongly behind you. And the quicker you show them the presence, the patrols, and prevention that this will bring, you will know that they have given them a response to that trust. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, City Council and City Staff. Peter Amundsen, Seal Beach. As we all know, Measure BB passed, and as someone who's very hesitant at first to support Measure BB, but who did, the biggest fear of the residents was that the money was going to be wasted or not used properly for safety. And so I'm here tonight to make sure the City Council and City Staff keep their promise and put safety a priority, that Chief Joe gets the officers that he needs, and that we get regular updates on how the money is being used. And so I'd just like to thank you for your time and make sure that you use the money how you told us you would. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Good evening, Robert Goldberg, Seal Beach. I'd like to talk briefly about one aspect of the proposed changes to the parking municipal code, and this has to do with the 72-hour rule, the rule that says for residential areas that you need to move cars every 72 hours. This is not a new rule. We have a 72-hour rule now, but it's enforced by complaint and with the old methods of chalk on the tires. The proposal that you have before you has two new changes to this rule. One is that the definition area stationary is changed in that if you don't move your car 150 feet, that's going to be considered stationary. And so I gave you a couple examples, and I wrote some questions and comments. And like, for example, in my case, I park a car in front of my house and I use it, I think every day or every other day, and then I repark in front of my house. Well, under the new code, that will be considered a stationary vehicle, even though I did use it. If the car happens to be there when the parking enforcement officer goes by with their license plate readers, and my car tire is not marked, they won't know whether I moved or not. So my concern is that we're going to have the way this is written right now, we'll have an unintended consequence, and that is that a large percentage of people who park their cars in front of their homes could be out of compliance with the rules as you have them proposed in front of you. And I just have a problem with adopting codes where you know when you're adopting them that most of your residents are out of compliance with them. I mean, I think we can do a better job than that. I mentioned in my comments to you all, I mentioned a couple ideas. One would be for the residential areas, would be instead of requiring people to move 150 feet would be to reduce that distance to 5 or 10 feet, some smaller distance, so people could still park in front of their homes. That's one possibility. I did have an opportunity briefly to speak to Commander Bowles about this issue, and I understand that the intent of the police department is not to change the enforcement from what we have currently, which is by complaint only, and I appreciate that. And they may not even use the LPR for this purpose. They're not committed to using LPR for enforcing the 72 hours, so they may still use the current techniques. That's all fine, but if that's the case, if they don't intend to use LPR, especially at least now, and they're, again, just going to be enforcing this by complaint, then we don't need to change this section. You could just leave this code section the way it's written right now. You don't have to add a new definition or stationary to this code section, and I think that's what I would recommend, is just leave this section as it is. Now, the section, there's a separate section about short-term parking, which has to do with Main Street and the Old Town permits, and there's, again, reference to the move the car 150 feet, and that's fine. That's totally different. That has to do with visitors and guests who, you know, you want to be here for only a short period of time, and then you want them to move on. Okay, that's separate sections, so you can leave the 150-foot rule for Main Street and for Old Town 1 hour parking. That's fine. Those are different sections. But I would just leave the storage of vehicles, the 72-hour regulation, the way it is.
1 minute, please.
Second thing I'd like to speak to just quickly is the local coastal plan. I'm not sure I understand why it's being delayed till the middle of 2020. When you guys had granted the contract to Baker International 2 years ago, the contract has an ending of 2 years and 5 months, which is the middle of this coming February, and the contract had 8 tasks, and one of those tasks was to present the coastal plan to the Coastal Commission and finish the project. So this project was supposed to be finished in January of 2019, and now we're hearing that it's going to take another 18 months. And I'm not clear on why that delay is. There was some reference to staffing issues, and I understand we haven't had a community development director for 18 months, but we hired a consultant, Baker International, for $280,000 to run this whole project. And so I don't understand why, for example, between October of last year and September this year, there really was no work done, if I can believe the checks that were paid. We've only paid Baker about $40,000 out of the $280,000, so I'm not clear on what the problem has been and why it's been delayed. And getting that done is very important. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. Jim Brady from Old Town. Well, BB is passed, and now comes the hard work. We have to decide how that's going to be spent. One of the things that was always brought up by people that were either in favor of BB or were against BB was the money was going into the general fund, and how is it going to be spent? And I told them, and I gave them promises, that I would keep track of that. I would monitor it. I would find out how that money was spent, and it had to be spent the way that the voters wanted it to be spent. So one of the things that we need to do immediately, although it's not going to go into effect as far as collecting the money until April 1st, and we won't be realizing the money until July, we need to immediately authorize the city manager to allow the police chief to go out and fill at least 3 immediate positions. It's going to take probably 3 or 4 months for the police chief to get those recruits in. By that time, we will have the money. But if we wait until the money comes in, we're not going to we're not going to have police officers on the street until late in the year. It'd be nice to have them before the summer and before the influx of all of the visitors. I would also like to thank the city council in entirety for your support for BB. I would like to thank council members Moore, Sestarsik, and Masalavit for hosting town halls. I would like to thank City Manager Jill Ingram and Finance Director Vicki Beatley for the work they did for the town halls that were put on. There was a lot of good educational information that was put out there. So we now have to work on getting authorization for those funds, and I hope that that's done within the next month or so. I would like to also talk about item D on the consent calendar. I was astonished when I read that we were going to make Chief Miller an interim police chief. He has been the interim police chief. In fact, he has been the police chief for over a year and a half. Why he never got that title, I don't know. I understand when the former chief was not working and before he terminated, that there was a period of time that went on where he would be Miller would be the acting chief because there was already a police chief. But once he left, he should have become the police chief unless you were actively searching for a police chief and you were advertising for it. Then he would be the interim until that hiring was done. But you weren't actively looking for a police chief. He was filling that function as the chief of police for Seal Beach. And now to officially recognize him as the interim chief, what has he been before if he wasn't the interim chief? So I don't know what the agreement is. I know nobody pulled this, nobody's discussing it. I understand that there's more to it because there's a retirement involved, but for God's sake, make him the chief of police. That's what he is. This is going to affect him for the rest of his life. When he goes out and has his resume, it's going to have interim chief of police. When he's been doing the police chief's job for over a year and a half. He has given to this city over 30 years in the police department. I think that he deserves to be named the chief of police without the interim title. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? City Attorney, do we have a report?
No, I do not.
City Manager, do we have a report?
No items tonight, thank you.
City Council?
I'd like to make a comment about the election. I'm glad that BB passed. I think you'll all be quite satisfied with how that money gets spent, how it's documented. I know that that will be advertising for new police officers shortly. That comes with the adoption of BB, and that will be on its way. But I'd also, about the election, I'd like to thank my constituents in District 5 for voting for me, for re-electing me. It made it easier that no one else was running against me. I had no competition. So, and I am grateful for the 1,900 people that voted for me, and none of whom are here tonight, but may be watching on television. I thank you all, and these 4 years have given me a real opportunity to meet people that I never would have met before in Leisure World, and talk to people that I never would have spoken with. So I am grateful for their confidence in me, in not running someone against me, but, and all of the ones that did vote for me. I do thank you, and I hope the next 4 years are as good as the last 4 years.
Thank you.
I'd also like to thank the voters in Seal Beach and in my district for approving Measure BB, for attending my town hall, and for their interest in learning about the measure and supporting it. I'd also like to report that I think it was the LA Times said that there were 11 cities in Los Angeles County, as well as 4 out of 5 of those in Orange County, also approved. Let's see, it's use and transaction tax. It's not quite sales tax, but so it just shows that it's not just our city's problem. It's mostly driven by pensions and things. It's a problem from all over. But I thank you. And we're not 10.25%, so at least that's a good thing. I wanted to thank the Orange County Library, Los Alamitos Rossmore branch, which is in Seal Beach, for pumpkin carving. I attended with my grandchildren, and they had a really fun program where you could paint and glitter and carve, and it was really a lot of fun the day before Halloween. I attended the Veterans Day ceremony at Eisenhower Park. I'd like to thank the Lions and Grace Community Church and the mayor for speaking. It was really nice to give thanks to all the veterans out there, thank them for their service and tell them we appreciate them. I'd also like to thank the firefighters and the first responders that are working, people in Orange County that are up there helping out at the fires. Just, it's such a stressful job for them, and I just wanted to let them know that we appreciate all they do for us. So thank you to that. And also, I wanted to share a letter that I was given. I had dropped by the small section of the dog park a month ago, and then again the other day. And I wanted to thank Tim Kelsey and Joe Tallarico, who helped me with some of my discretionary funds last year, and put some trees, a shade structure, and a water hose bib at the small dog park, because it was a little small, little parched, and needed a little bit of love. And the people, I was there in the middle of the afternoon, and there were people there using it, and they were so appreciative, and they wrote a letter, I believe, to Tim, and said that they were regular users. They had 30-plus dog owners there. Their pups run, frolic, and enjoy. The oppressive heat from the sun has dampened their joy, but now the new arbor gazebo has given plenty of shade, and they have water and bowls and whatever. We love and are grateful for all the recent upgrades to the small dog park. Thank you for all you've done and continue to do from the bottom of our hearts. Sincerely, thank you, grateful and happy small dog owners and their pups too. So anyway, I wanted to thank Tim and Joe for all their hard work in sourcing, which they stretched. I mean, they stretched money. Public Works is good at that too, but these guys were amazing at just stretching how much they could do, and just wanted to let everyone know how much the users appreciate their work. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Moore.
Thanks. Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to thank everyone in my district for passing BB, especially Polly for coming here tonight and speaking. She's been great in our area. Also, Jim Brady and everyone else that supported the measure. I'd like to ask the city to come back with an item to add 3 police officers on the next agenda. And I went to the crafts fair at Leisure World with my wife Sharon, and we enjoyed talking to people and buying some nice items for Christmas. I went to the city selection committee where Richard Murphy, councilman for Los Alamitos was reelected to the OCTA board. I'm proud to report I was elected to the SCAC board, which is the Senior Citizens Advisory Council for Orange County. And I look forward to helping seniors in Orange County and representing Seal Beach there. Thanks.
Thank you. I wanted to thank the residents also. There were a lot of volunteers, city staff, police department, fire department for the Measure B. I know they did a lot of work, and it definitely showed in the election results. Thank you to the voters of District 3. I was also elected unanimously, like Councilmember Masalavit, and it was nice to run unopposed, and it really shows that there's a lot of hard work that we've done and we got to do still. I think learning the last 4 years is what we learned here is that there's a lot more to Seal Beach than Main Street, the pier, and the beach, and there's a lot of innards and outwards that that you learn when you're up here and you're involved in the city like we are. So it's a good process and it works well, and I think we all work together well to have a good product for the residents and citizens of Seal Beach. And we are committed to follow the dollars with BB, and that's what we're here for. I also attended the Americana kickoff last week for the Cypress College honorees. Once you see and meet these people, and I know they're our residents or neighbors, you really see all the work that they do, and the list isn't like this long, it's like this long. And I challenge the young audience in here to get involved with your communities. You live in a great town, whether it's Seal Beach or Cypress or Los Alamitos or any of the other cities around here. Get involved. There's so many different avenues to get involved in. The other thing I was able to attend was the Veterans Day on the Bluffs in Eisenhower Park. It was probably one of the best Veterans Day events I've been to in a long time. Mr. Tom Bell kind of hosted it and ran it, and then Pastor Bob from the Grace Community Church was there, and we really had an amazing story from Major Polkin. The guy just has been through so much, and I don't know, he didn't look any older than like 20 years old, but I know he's older than that, but the things he did for our country are just amazing. So along with the Grace Community Church and the Lions Club, they really did a great job, and it was a very well-attended event. And I see all the students here from Los Alamitos. I kind of wanted to give a big shout-out to the Los Alamitos girls volleyball team. They won the CIF Southern Sectional title. Really got over some obstacles, came from behind, and won a number of games, underdog in many matches. And they made it all the way to the regional finals, and they did a great job. So with that, I want to thank them. We'll move on to the council items now. The consent items on the consent calendar are considered to be routine and are enacted by a single motion with the exception of items removed by city or by council members. Excluding item H, do we have a motion to pass all the other items?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Please vote. With a vote of 4-0, items A through I, excluding H, have been passed. We will now move to item H. That's the approval of professional service agreement with Rassick Construction to install a new Southern California Edison service connection. Do we have a staff report?
Yes, Mayor, thank you. I'll turn this item over to our Public Works Director, Steve Miter. Steve?
Thank you, City Manager Ingram, and also Honorable Mayor Virapapa and members of the council. The 15 First Street Restaurant Facility renovation capital budget was approved for $180,000 by Resolution 6798 at the February 26 council meeting. This renovation budget was established through a very detailed work plan where a detailed analysis went through all the building systems and determined what systems would need upgraded to code or just overall just improved to live, to basically extend its useful life. One of the facilities we looked at was the Edison panel. The Edison panel, and you got to remember this facility was originally, I think it's important to understand that the facility evolved from a snack shack masonry construction with a storage unit next door, masonry construction, built in 1976. It was converted to a restaurant starting in the 90s, and it kind of evolved over a 6-year period from what I can tell from the building permits. So there were some challenges with the property in terms of some of these facilities being over 42 years old now. So we were looking at all those items, and the Edison panel was clearly past its useful life. And I think it's important to understand that that a 200 amp panel for a restaurant facility is very inadequate. So when I did the analysis and created the budgets, I actually itemized every budget and then came up with a lump sum for the council budget analysis. But part of that budget included replacement of that Edison panel. I envisioned it would be upgraded and replaced to a 400 amp. And there are some challenges with the codes down there right now as we speak. First of all, the Edison 200 amp panel is clearly beyond its useful life, 42 years old. But the Edison connection does not meet code. It is a smaller connection than it should be. And you got to remember, it's been there for 42 years, and it's under code and in a harsh environment. So if you stay with an Edison 200 amp panel, would it have to be replaced? No. Is it prudent to replace it? I believe so, to establish another 50-year lifespan. However, to upgrade to 400 amp, or I'll get to the 600, it definitely had to be upgraded, the actual connection to the Edison circuit. And the Edison circuit is actually located at our beach shack, our beach facility yard. So that's where the Edison circuit is. It's not at First Street. So that's where we have to reach to. Now the 600 amp became necessary because, unbeknownst to me, the one part of our city that still hasn't been converted to a three-phase circuit, Edison uses the terminology three-phase, which is a more efficient way to deliver electricity to customers. That particular area has never been converted to a three-phase. It's still single-phase. That's important because it's not as efficient. So this restaurant is it's going to be equipped with very modern facilities, a lot of motors, and motors need that extra amperage to start. That's where a three-phase comes in, so it allows it to be more efficient, so you could operate at 400. Because there's not a three-phase down there, we had to upsize again to 600. It basically goes 200 amps in increments. So 600 was the next level. So 600 would not have been required in a three-phase. I just didn't know that particular circuit, one of the last ones in our city, never got converted to basically a three-phase. Now it can be converted, but that would cost about $100,000, and I don't think it warrants that. So the budget was established to deliver a restaurant with a system that was adequate to serve that kind of type of use, and it would meet current codes and would have enough flexibility for the future. Remember, we're building a facility that we hope to use for the next 50 years. So I think that's why I think the 600 amp is a prudent investment in our facility. So that's why we're proposing to construct that. It's consistent with the work plan, it's consistent with the budget in terms of what I established. And we basically, using that scope, we bid out informally to 5 contractors, and two contractors submitted, but it's a very busy time out there, and smaller projects like this one we're not getting a lot of competitive bids. So we got what we feel is we looked at the Erastic bid, it was very fair and it was very competitive. The second bid was not, but that's actually Meek, our peer contractor. They're a large contractor, they're just not set up to do small projects. They were proposing to use their sub-electrical contractor. But of course, they have to charge 20% on what they do, so that's why their number was so much higher. So we feel that this is a fair price, and they're willing, they want to start right away so we can get this done. Our goal was to have it done by December 1st. We pretty much are on track to have it installed. Edison would come back and install their facilities inside of it. And that, we're coming to council tonight because in our process or procedures or procurement procedures, there's a threshold of $33,260. A department head or city manager can sign off, but beyond that, it requires a council action. Now, obviously, we just bid out the Grease Interceptor project, which is part of that facility, and it was of my plan. And RASIC won that, and it was an informal bid. However, it was well documented, and we felt that plus this adds up to well beyond that threshold, and it's the same project, so we thought it'd be prudent to bring it to council to allow them to consider the award. And that concludes my report.
Okay, Councilwoman Sestarsik, I'll let you start.
Yeah, I just had some questions because from what I remember when we approved the 180,000, we were talking about a roof, we were talking about HVAC, and we were talking about a grease interceptor. I didn't remember us talking about electrical connection. So I was kind of surprised by the number, and I didn't remember this being on our list. So, and I was also, because of the difference in the bids, that was also a little surprising to me. So I kind of wanted like an update, find out what's going on, and because we haven't heard anything too much recently.
Sure.
So.
Let me, you know what, I have my fairly detailed work plan, so let me just go through, why don't we go through the status report on that?
That's fine.
I'll use this. So in the staff report, I have a summary, the staff report summarizes it, the one back in, I think it was February. Let's see where the date is. February 26, February 26 is the staff report, and that's the one where I summarized. Basically, the plan has condition structural facility assessment. And of course, the goal of that was to look at the overall structure. Is there major problems that had to be addressed? And the answer I hired an architect and a structural engineer, and they went through the facility. They came up with the answer, and I have reports on this, that says that the structure overall it is what it is. It's a masonry construction, but considering the age, it's adequate. And there was no structural issues at that point. So and I have that well documented. That was one of the items funded. Replacement of roof system. Obviously, when you look at it, there's no real leaking going on, but this aesthetically, it looks like it needs a replaced. The tiles are broken. It's clear that people were climbing on it and broke the tiles. The roof structure underneath is actually in very good shape. So the actual structure supporting those tiles is in pretty good shape. There are some minor repairs we found, but overall in good shape. It just aesthetically it needs replaced. Install grease interceptor. The building, obviously, we have a code that's recently implemented 5 years ago. I think it's in that range. And of course, the code is grease interceptor, basically requirements of the health department. And we want to make sure our facility meets the codes we're requiring other owners to establish. So we did need a grease interceptor. That actually was awarded, and that is actually, we started today. We cleared and grubbed it. We will have it hopefully excavating next week, and that'll be done in about a week and a half. So we're on schedule there. So that was budgeted, and then replace I have summary HVAC system. Now, it didn't, obviously this particular structure, that is a term, a generic term that describes any ventilation in a building. It's called HVAC. Now, some systems are very complicated. This one was not. This was a swamp cooler and a basically a kitchen fan that both inoperable. So when I say HVAC, I'm not talking about it. I'm talking about
It's a
that.
swamp cooler, yeah.
So that was inoperable. We had actually had an expert look at it. We know what it would cost to replace it, but there's that, we'll get to that. So then replace main electrical panel, and that's what it says in the staff report. What I probably should have been more descriptive, because that's what I was looking at that, and I put that down. Basically, evaluate the electrical system or connection, and that actually required, I allocated budget for it, and substantially more than the panel. So I knew we were going to have some challenges there. I didn't know about the single phase when I developed the budget, which is increasing the cost, obviously. But the reality is the panel itself is, this real quickly, the panel is a demarcation between Edison service and the private service to that building. So that marks that. So the Edison service itself is not up to code, now that we know that, but we always envisioned that we were going to do substantial work there. So that's kind of how I got there.
That's our responsibility to bring it, but it doesn't come from, it comes from up above, but it doesn't come to the restaurant, it comes to where?
Okay, the Edison connection that that serves that building and our sewer station is actually located next to our beach tractor facility. We have a beach shop down there.
Yeah.
And it's a masonry building. That's where it is. That's the connection point. So Edison said, go ahead and connect there. Now, if we wanted to convert it to three-phase, that would take us up to First Street.
Oh, okay.
So
So
that's
you're
where.
just going from the
Yes,
garage there
yes.
to the restaurant?
Right, that's correct. And that connection right now is a substandard conduit that's been in the ground for 42 years in a very harsh condition. So I think it's prudent, since we're down there, to go ahead and replace that as well, just to guarantee reliability.
And so a restaurant normally these days takes 400 amp, 600 amp? 600
really-
amp is like just insurance against?
Well, 200 is residential.
Okay.
So that 400 for a commercial facility is reasonable with a three-phase, and 600 wouldn't be uncommon. It depends on you have walk-in refrigerators, you have air conditioning, you have dishwashers going. All these motors are what's driving it. But I think the air conditioning is obviously the biggest driver, but you got to remember walk-in refrigerators and stuff like that too.
You're talking about if they put air conditioning in, we're
Well,
not putting air conditioning in.
No, well,
right?
they're planning on putting all those facilities in their load requirements are kicking it to 600. So that's, and my budget always envisioned that we were going to deliver a building that had the capability to support a restaurant. So the budget itself, in terms of, let's see, I'll go through, let's go back to so obviously the facility assessment is complete. I do have cost on roofing systems. We go to the state bid. The grease interceptor has been awarded, and we actually started construction today in terms of clearing and grubbing, and we should have it working next week as far as installation starting. And the HVAC system is on hold because their facility, if I put it in, they would have to rip it out. So their facility, they have a design, and Crystal can talk to that. Their facility is going to change the roof line. The two major roofs are the same, but you got to remember that in the part that's in the middle, which is the tin roof part, is kind of enclosed. That's going to be completely rebuilt, and the roof's going to be rebuilt as well, and right there.
But we're not paying for.
No, we're not paying for that. That is why I have not moved forward on replacing the tiles. Because there's no way to do that. If I put the tiles down, they're going to have to tie into that, and we just saw the plan set. There's no way to really do it smoothly, and it would just destroy what we just did. So it wouldn't really be prudent expenditure. So that's why that process has not moved forward, though I could. I could get this done very quickly.
I just was wondering if we were still in budget, and I was also wondering, I had heard that it was going to Coastal Commission, so I was concerned that the timeline then was changing from the last time we were told that it was going to be early 2019 or something like that.
As far as budget status, assuming tonight is awarded, we're approximately expended at this point. I did the numbers yesterday. We're right about $90,000 of a $180,000 budget. So also, I forgot to mention, there's also, we actually started that today. We did an environmental assessment of the whole building, which is required to look for asbestos and lead. We did found some limited amounts, and we hired a contractor specialized in that, and he's down there today and tomorrow, and by the end of the week, he'll be done. So that part is now done. So that, the budget included that, of course.
Okay.
So we're just under 100,000, I want to say 90,000, right around there, 95. And the remaining budget was allocated for the roof, and was also allocated to do some structural repairs around that enclosure area, the tin roof, which is what we originally thought we were going to do, but apparently they're going to rebuild the whole thing, so that money won't be used there. So that's how we have a balance right now.
Okay.
So hope that answers your question.
Yeah, I think
Okay.
so.
Any other questions? I had a couple questions. Originally, you were going to put a 400 amp
Yes.
in there. Does that need the same wiring as a 600 amp, the same connections?
No, what happens on a 600, when you go 600, a 400 would use a 4-inch conduit. A 600 requires two dual 4-inch conduits. So when you dig the trench, you'll put one more conduit down.
So the 400 wasn't recommended because
It doesn't, well, load calcs, it can't support the load that they're asking for
okay.
based on their electrical load calcs. And they just don't have it just doesn't have the capacity being single phase.
And talking with people in the industry, they said that a lot of new homes are getting 400 amps in their homes because there's so much electronics, 2 to 400 amps because there's so much electronics in their homes. So 400 is the new norm, I guess.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. So, yeah, absolutely.
And you have the approved budget, you're within the budget, and you
within the
anticipate they're going to be within the budget at the end of this
Absolutely.
construction whenever we see the light
I
of day.
fully
of that.
anticipate a savings, not expending the whole amount.
And the only reason you came here is because the same contractor got the grease interceptor contract,
Yes,
and you didn't want to
yes.
show any
I wanted to make sure
splitting of.
that council
Not the
was
only
aware
reason,
that
but
I
one
was
of the
awarding
reasons you came here.
2 contracts, both done through informal bidding per our procedures, but adding the 2 up does bring me over the threshold. I just wanted to make sure council had the opportunity to understand that and authorize it.
So it seems like it's a lot like the wireless network. We're going from 4G to 5G and 400 to 600, and before you know it, will be who knows where, because you always need more power and more service. Is
What
that-
made it even more challenging in this particular case is the single phase. That was something that really makes it inefficient, and
Right.
it really drives the amps up to make it work. So that's kind of what drove us to that level.
Is the cost similar between the 400 and 600?
Yeah, it actually is very similar. We're talking probably at the most $5,000 difference between the two. Because all you're going to do is you're going to dig the same trench, you're just going to put another pipe down, another conduit down, the box. And the panels really aren't that much different. They're a little bigger, but not a lot bigger.
And this will be able to service in the future and
Absolutely.
the
It will
next
have plenty of
40
capability.
years at least, I would
Yes.
imagine. And
Yes.
any other questions?
Just the question on the timeline, does, if they're going to for coastal commission approval, do we have a new estimate on?
Well, they have submitted their plans to the Coastal Commission, so I know that the Coastal Commission is currently reviewing that. I can only speak for the city's timeline. They went through the initial plan check, there were corrections, they resubmitted, and it's being reviewed right now. But I don't have a timeline on what the Coastal Commission's determination is going to be.
I think we talked about having another update in January on the whole thing. Didn't we talk about that when the tenant's representative was here a couple months ago?
That's right. I believe
So
when
maybe
he
that-
was here giving his presentation, we did ask for a
January
follow-up.
of next year, we can kind of get just the status of the whole, because we got to move on this and start collecting some rent.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think, and
Yeah, and
That's
we'll
amazing.
definitely bring that back for a presentation to let the council know what the status is at the January meeting.
okay.
Thank
Any
you.
other questions? Do we have a motion?
I'll move to approve.
Do you have a second?
Second.
Please vote. Item passes 4-0. Thank you. Okay. All right, I think we have a public hearing.
New business.
We'll move right to new business. Item J, parking-related municipal code changes and parking policy revisions.
Yes, Mayor, thank you. I'll call forward Commander Steve Bowles, and I know also Julie Dixon, who all of you know by now, who's been our parking project manager, is here tonight as well. Steve?
Good evening, City Manager, City Council, City staff. We are at a long journey in our parking project, and we've had several public hearings and have implemented some new technologies. This one of the next chapters in our parking plan is the implementation of some cleaning up our municipal code. And I'll ask Julie Dixon, our consultant, to come on up, and she'll review some of the community code changes that we're proposing. And I'll turn it over to Julie. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Commander. So this is really just a recap from the last time that we were at council for the initial introduction. And some of the items that you'll actually see outlined in the updates really goes into being able to help us also manage parking based on license plates. We talked about the utilization of license plate recognition technology as well to help us manage some of that. One of the items that we really want to make sure that we're addressing as we talk about the codes as well is the importance of the vehicles really moving throughout the city. And this is really something that we're keen, especially on the Main Street area, and that's where you'll see the introduction of what we like to call the no reparking ordinance, which is the requirement for the vehicles to move more than 150 feet after they've actually expired on the time limit. And we think that that's really something that's important. We've obviously heard quite a bit from the community when it comes to the issue of paid parking on Main Street. So this is an opportunity for us to take the next step in managing those vehicles that are parking on Main Street and making sure that we don't have business owners or employees who are taking up that premium parking. And so you'll see several of those updates that have actually been made to the code that are really focused on that aspect of managing parking. Some of the items that were addressed during public comments earlier too, when it comes to that 150 feet, also has to deal with the residential zones. The idea right now is really just to give us a little bit more of, I'll call it a booster when it comes to dealing with some of our overnight parking challenges with maybe oversized vehicles. We're hoping that by putting in the rule for the 150 feet movement is also intended to give law enforcement a little bit more of a boost when it comes to help managing those issues. We've heard from several of the stakeholders and the residents about some of the implications of some of the large oversized vehicles that are parking on street. So our hope is by having the 150 feet rule, it'll give just a little bit more leverage to the 72-hour rule that's already in place in the vehicle code. Basically just giving another tool for law enforcement to utilize when it comes to that piece of it. We also have the updates to the electric vehicle charging, making sure that vehicles that are parked in the EV parking spaces are actively charging, so that way we're making sure that those spaces are maximized for those folks that need to be able to charge their vehicles. And you'll also see the update that has to do with just further enforcing people from preventing them from basically removing chalk marks from their tires in hopes of evading a parking ticket. So it's really about that fine tuning of the rules that you'll really see there before you. And I believe that there's nothing in there that's exceptional from any of the discussions that we've had in the past, but really that path for how we're going to hopefully manage parking more efficiently and effectively in the future.
Okay. We'll open it up to questions. Anyone have any questions?
Yeah.
Councilmember Moore?
On the section 8.15.025, if that applies to all the neighborhoods in Seal Beach, like if I park in front of my house and then I come back and park again in front of the same spot, is that a violation?
No, it's not, because you've actually moved your vehicle. And so one of the keys that when we talk about utilizing the LPR, again, it's not the intent today to start to manage the 72 hours with the LPR, but it is an opportunity in the future. I want to highlight that. But the key is that let's just say I tracked your car and I identified your license plate in front of your address on Monday. You went to work, you came back, but when I come back on Tuesday, your car is parked in a similar location. There's two things that are really relevant in the LPR system for if I was tracking to this detail. One is the geo coordinates of where your car was parked. I will actually have an image of your vehicle from the first time if we were tracking for this purpose. And I'll also be able to see an image of your tire stem as well for when the vehicle went by for that purpose. So that if it got to a point that your vehicle was identified as potentially extending beyond the 72 hours, we would have images to support that that vehicle was parked in that same location. But I really want to highlight that the issue with the 72 hours is really what we call a vehicle abatement tool. If your vehicle had cobwebs coming off of it or your tires were starting to melt into the pavement, that's really when we talk about 72-hour rules is what it really comes down to. This is what the vehicle code baselines for law enforcement to be able to take action. And I also want to highlight if your vehicle was identified to be in violation of the 72-hour rule, the police department actually takes certain steps, which includes putting a notice on the vehicle before they can tow it. If they were going to tow it, they also can do things like put a penny on top of the tire. There's all sorts of little steps that they go to, but most importantly, there is a public notice that's put on the vehicle before your vehicle is ever towed. So that's one of the factors that when we talk about managing 72 hours, there are several steps that the police department has to go through before they can take any action on your vehicle. And likely, if you received any type of notice, you would be able to call the police department and, have the conversation about if, again, maybe there was something that your vehicle was identified and, maybe it wasn't just or right, but that's definitely part of that conversation. There's a lot of pretense that has to go into it before they can actually tow your car for that 72-hour issue.
Okay, thanks.
Long answer, sorry.
Any other questions?
Go ahead. Similarly, in College Park East, a lot of people at the same thing where people are going to be coming back and parking in front of their houses, as opposed to Old Town. We do have occasionally we have a problem where near the park, people will park their cars to put for sale, and I think there's no ordinance against that, I guess, right now, but the only thing that PD said is, well, if they're there longer than 72 hours, then we can, tell them to move it or something. So that I was interested to hear. I asked some questions about the motor vehicles, because we have some people that have them and they use the passes to park them and load them, and they want it to be in a certain place next to their house. So I wasn't sure if they have a pass, they can stay there, or if they have to be moving it, where this is, I had a realtor talk to me about one particular client that was interested in buying, wanted to know if they could park there and the wall and all that, because down on the cul-de-sacs near Almond, it's very short parking and you can't park in your driveway and the parking places are small. So that's why I was interested in, if that was changing that, because they would want to be able to park a couple days there or something.
I just want to make sure, are you referring to recreational vehicles or oversized vehicles? Sorry, I just want to make sure.
I'm sorry, yeah.
No, of
recreational
course. I think that one of the things that the commander has always really put out there, especially at our stakeholder meetings, is that, maybe you have a visitor coming into town or you're going to be traveling. I think the police department has always been very available to having those conversations, or even, I believe, Commander, you've even made arrangements for folks to park their vehicles by the police department if there were challenges as well. So I think that when we start to talk about oversized vehicle parking, because parking is so limited in our community, I think it's something that we want to be proactive and aware of. And then also because we do have the challenges of several of the oversized vehicles and recreational vehicles that are circulating the community and parking. And I know that we're constantly trying to address those factors. So I would say that if someone in the community needed some type of exception, I would suggest that they contact the police department directly to communicate that. But the intent for the rules here is to really try to, again, provide a little bit more in the toolbox for the police department to be able to deal with some of the challenges of the oversized vehicles that continue to try to move about the community as well.
Okay, and my other question was, I think I got an answer to it, but it was in regard to there would be no RVs parked in the beach lots anymore, or?
There is not designated oversized vehicle parking in the beach lots for the sheer factor of the beach parking lots are very restricted in terms of size, and especially when we have our busy beach weekends, when you end up having the oversized vehicles in the beach parking lot, it causes a lot of congestion and a lot of challenges. So the intent is to not allow oversized vehicles to park in the beach lots moving forward.
Okay, I did have somebody I worked an election with that was from Leisure World, and she took, one day a week, she took her RV from the parking lot in Leisure World and took it to the beach. So it was just a question, thank you.
Sure.
Just to add to that, if you go to Bolsa Chica, they actually have, by design, oversized vehicle parking spaces. Here, we ran into problems over the last several years with an oversized vehicle taking 2 spots and paying for one, or there'd be some confusion. And plus the traffic ingress and egress gets so tight, we decided to go.
I just wondered if you were going to have a couple of those or something like that. That was all.
No.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions? I had a question, back to the 150 feet.
Sure.
The neighbor across the street from me lives on a corner, and he's an elderly gentleman, and he doesn't drive but once a week. And he leaves his car there, and he never moves it. I mean, would he be cited, or only cited if he got called upon to be cited?
So at this point, it's really based on complaint at this point, or if there's concern that a vehicle is abandoned. Like I said, you see the cobwebs or the tires are starting to,
Well, I see the
flatten.
cobwebs, but I know it's his car. But he
Yeah,
doesn't-
so I think that that's part of the opportunity, is that when
I mean,
people want to store their vehicles on the public streets, I think that that's obviously in a congested neighborhood like yours, that's probably not the best use of that location. So ideally, if they had a driveway or a garage to park it in,
Well, he lives on a corner,
sure.
and there's plenty of parking.
Then I
Likes to park in
I
front
would
of his
say it's
house.
really complaint driven,
But my
so.
question would be, why would he have to move 150 feet, and he lives on a corner? Even if he didn't live on a corner, why couldn't he move 10 feet on the other side of the driveway? Or why couldn't he move around the corner, which is also his property? Why would he have to move to my other neighbor's house for 3 days and just leave his car there? Because I know it's not a scenario unless it's called upon, but still it's a scenario that could be if the neighbor's irate or they don't like each other or whatever the case may be. So why even put it in there if we're not going to do it? And what's wrong with the old ordinance?
Previous, yep.
And why not say 15 feet. Like, I mean, and if you live in Old Town, you're going to move 5 houses up.
Right.
You know, and then you're going to move 5 houses down. Then you're going to move 5 houses up. You know what I mean? We're creating this like car shuffle of 150 feet, and I don't know if that it doesn't make sense globally. I know it's not a scenario that we hit every day, but it's in there now. We have to follow it.
So the 150 feet is basically a block face. So if you think about it, it's basically moving to the next block, like you said,
But my elderly neighbor has to move a block away.
or across the street for that matter too, the way that in this particular scenario. I mean, so I do think that that's something that, again, it's up to you all.
Yeah.
But in terms of the 150 feet, when you start to get into the 10 feet, 5 feet factor, you know, you really don't want your parking enforcement officers or your police officers out there with the measuring tape.
No,
you know, because that's not the intent.
We have a GPS picture now.
True, that's very true. But I really say when we
Doesn't
start
that-
to talk about the spirit of the enforcement is really where we're trying to look at again, is to have those opportunities of where we're really looking for people to move their
Well, we want
cars.
to talk about the spirit of the neighbors.
Yeah,
we
absolutely.
don't want to inconvenience this elderly gentleman just because he parks here all week and then on Saturday he goes out. You know what I mean?
No, understood.
And if someone's having an issue with him or another neighbor, they'll easily call the police and say, hey, that's the rule. You got to have them moving 150 feet. You know what I mean? It's just, we're creating a rule that, I don't know if it was a problem before, just the way it was written. Was it a problem?
That's how it was before.
Was it, well, it wasn't 150 feet, it just said 72.
feet, but 72
Yeah.
hours.
And I think you add the challenge of one neighborhood compared to another neighborhood, and I think that that's also trying to find that balance.
Yeah.
So that there's also equitability for some of your more congested areas versus maybe some of your not so congested areas, is trying to find out what that measure is so that it's equitably applied across the city as
That's
well.
why I would want my neighbor to park in front of their house even more so.
Sure.
Especially lived in Old Town, which I lived for 15 years. I wouldn't want the guy down the street moving 150 feet in front of my house just because he had to move it 150 feet. You know what I mean? It's like,
Oh, I totally understand, but the one thing I also, just because I deal with this subject all the time, is we also have to keep in mind, like a lot of people like to claim ownership of that space that's in
I
front of
did
their
all the
house.
time.
So I just want to make sure, I just want to put that out there. It is a public street. So, but no, and I understand that.
so is that a magic number, 150 feet?
It's the typical, it's a block face is really what
Block
that number,
face.
that's where the 150 feet really comes from, is that's basically about a block away. And that's really what that measure and where that number comes from. Because if you start to add smaller factors, you're also, like I said, you're asking that whole nitpicky, you know, get the measuring tape out, how far away, and that's not the intent of the rules. So the, again, it's up to you all in terms of how you want to proceed, but the intent was just for a manageable, and then people start to understand, if I need to move my car, I need to move it a block. That just helps people understand it versus, you know, 2 houses over 10 feet, 5 feet, et cetera.
I have a question.
Personally, I don't like that idea, but go ahead.
Can I ask the chief, Miller?
Stay out of the parking problem.
Hall of Famer. I'm a Hall of Famer here.
3 of them here, they can do that.
Do we have a big issue with 72-hour parking?
Sometimes.
I would say we do generate complaints from it, yes.
Do we give out a lot of tickets? Do we tow? How many
We do tow cars for the 72 hours, yes, for sure, we do that.
You give
but
out ticket notice kind of thing?
Yes.
Move your car?
We'd
or
rather
else.
do that, yes.
Yeah, you're legally required to do that. Do you do it? I mean, do you have to tow?
So traditionally, if we get a complaint of someone that's parked.
Steve, can you go to the microphone? Thank you.
Sorry.
Thank you for diverting that over to him.
Right.
You did it.
If we get a complaint, we can enforce 72 hours anytime that we wish to.
Right.
But we don't as part of our parking plan.
Most cities
We go-
do it
Right,
that
we go by way of complaint. So if somebody calls and said, hey, there's a car parked across the street, for me, it's been there for a few days, we will dispatch one of our parking enforcement officers there. They'll mark the car, they'll put a warning on the windshield, and maybe put a penny on the back tire, right, to see if it truly has moved. So we can see that they will actually get a notice that starting at this date and time, it's now being marked for another 72 hours. So there's ample time. We're not I seem like I profess this every time I'm here at the microphone. We are a common sense police department. We try to be.
Very obvious, your common sense.
And we just want people to move their car.
And
if it's
most of
been
them
parked.
do.
And most of them, we find, I'd say 95% compliance.
Okay.
Yeah, so we not only go by way of complaint, then we do a formal notice for another 72 hours. So we feel we give plenty of time and to alert the owner or the driver of the vehicle.
So do you feel the 150 feet is necessary to add, or does it really?
You know, I that's kind of your discretion. I know, a lot of cities, a lot of beach cities have that 150 feet in it. We believe so.
Have you looked into maybe an exception if it's your house? Like if the car resides in front of that house.
Well, if I could add, and not to speak for the commander, but I think it's important too that your police department does its diligence as well. I think that's important when they're also responding to address these vehicles, is that I think that the conversations that are had often, I know that there's research done on the registered owners, because I have to admit, when you put a notice on the vehicle to tow that vehicle, there's a lot that goes into that, as well as in some cases, it might be the person's only means of transport, et cetera. So I know that the police department does a lot of diligence in, when they receive the complaints, being able to look the cars up, see if we can make contact with the owners when available. And so I want to just highlight the fact that putting that into the rule, into the code, you wouldn't really want to put that, because then you're talking about exceptional situations and treating different populace in a different way just because of the residents. But what I would just say is that when I get back to the spirit of the law, the intent is to try to get people to move the cars, and I know that if the police department can make contact with the registered owner to get them to take action. And so I think that that's an example of the gentleman that you mentioned that lives on the corner, is that if we find that there's a consistent issue or if we're getting complaints, being able to make contact with that resident and try to figure out, how we can best try to make it work for that person too, I think is important, because I think that's the whole thing as we're seeking compliance. I know that it's a really big deal to tow cars. There's expensive associated with it, the resources, everything that goes along with it. So if we can try to work with the community in this, it's not the intent to go out there and start towing vehicles by any means. And that's why I think that the police department already today goes through a lot of diligence when it comes to noticing when they do have complaints. And so I think that there's a part of that that already exists. It's just not necessarily written into the code. It's just the way that their process and protocols operate.
Is 75 feet okay?
And that is absolutely, as the commander said, that is your discretion.
I just hate my neighbor to walk a whole block just to move his car, that's all.
It's Seal Beach. It's beautiful here.
Just one other quick question.
Sure.
The license plate reader, when the cars are parked end to end and the bumpers blocking the license plate, how do you read the license plate?
So you'd actually be surprised to know the accuracy opportunities for the cameras to catch. It's not 100%, but you'd be surprised at how well, depending on how the parking enforcement officer is driving, that the cameras actually do catch. It's not 100%, but they do catch quite a few. Can I tell them what the LPR? Oh, okay. So just so that you know, since the LPR has been operating in Seal Beach, the parking enforcement officer has already located a stolen vehicle. So, that's really exciting, because that's just one of the added benefits for the technology and tools that are out there as well. So, but you'd be surprised that the LPR can capture the majority of the plates, even when they are parked up to up. Yep.
All right. Well, what's your pleasure? A motion for...
I'd like to make a motion that the City Council introduce and read by title only and waive further reading of Ordinance 1672, approving changes to the City of Seal Beach Municipal Code relating to parking and public parking lots, and approve the revisions to the City Council Policy 100-9 parking permits.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Please vote. Item passes 4-0. Thank you.
The title of the ordinance is Ordinance 1672, an ordinance of the City of Seal Beach amending and restating Chapters 8.15, 8.20, and 8.25 of the Seal Beach Municipal Code to impose restrictions on stopping, standing, and parking of vehicles in the city, regulations for parking in city parking lots, and amending the process for administrative appeals of parking citations.
Thank you. I think that's the last item. We will adjourn the city council meeting on Monday, December 10th, 2018 at 5:30 PM to meet in closed session if deemed necessary. Thank you and happy Thanksgiving, everybody.